So hi everyone, my name is Leticia. I'm a PhD student in the City Science group. And this is my second year here, actually. Well, I spent some more time before as a visiting student. And I'm going to show you a couple of research projects that I've been doing in the group. Ariel talked about the street knowledge, and I guess it's a very good way to define what I'm going to present today. One research project is is about a case study in which I collect data and visualize data in a community that is qualitative and not easy to see sometimes, but that affect a lot of people experience in the space. And the other research project is an immersive space where we can visualize urban future images in a collective setting. So why is this important? It's because sometimes we see places like these tall buildings that have a very low quality for humans to live in. This is why we're in the City Science group exploring new ways of introducing qualitative data into the decision-making tools to avoid places like this one that stress us over time and gradually affect our mental and physical state. This said, I'm going to show these early studies about one specific qualitative issue, that is safety. So for this case study, I work in Mexico, in Guadalajara, in a place, this is a map representing the area. And the idea here was working with sensitive information with the community, trying to understand the experience in the space, and then using different tools for simulating how they moved, how they behaved around the space, and visualize it in a way that helps us understand better these dynamics. Let me guide you through this whole process. The process begins by engaging a group of women from the community. Then we collected different types of data, from interviews to surveys. We used remote sensing as well and mobile applications. And from all this data, we ended up developing some metrics on safety perception. Once we had these, we unified them in a model and simulated different scenarios to test, how we'll repercute these changes in these different metrics. And finally, we are developing now this interactive tool to collectively think about how we can improve some of these areas that are recognized as unsafe in the community. So once we are in touch with the local community, this is a map of the area. Step one is developing a virtual model, a replica of the local location. And for this process, sometimes for this step, sometimes we don't have, particularly in informal settlements, we don't have 3D models or any kind of data really. So we need to use different ways of doing this through drone imagery, through using other sensing technologies to build up this map. In this case, in the bottom up, you can see, I used, drone images and depth image, and then I built it in Unreal Engine. In any case, once we have this replica of the real location, we work with the community to collect both quantitative and qualitative data to understand their experience in space. In this case, I started doing one-on-one interviews with women from this community. And the idea was trying to understand their context and the reason why they were feeling unsafe. What are the reason and their for these ongoing situations to happen, or why they were not using the streets or not leaving their houses after 4 p.m. Once I knew, or I had collected different data with different women, one of the problems we had is there was no data, there were no metrics to measure and to further understand this, so we had to generate them. You can see here some of these metrics that we generated. They are grouped in nine clusters. And they are the clusters, and then by different, by similarity. The first one, for instance, is access to help and surveillance, and here we are doing reference to whether there is police or not around, the trust that people has in the police in this community. The second one, we are talking about visibility and safe mobility, and things such as whether there is or not artificial lighting in some areas, how is the quality of public transportation, and also if that exists or not. and so on and so forth. If you have any questions, I can go deeper into this part. But for now, I'll continue explaining what happens once we have these metrics built. And we had to validate them upon data collection with the community, and we used for that from behavioral mapping that you see here, like both in a community center and also walking with these women throughout the street while they were like having their maps and marking the points where they were feeling unsafe. But also we were using interviews and surveys with a specific question tailored to the different metrics that we developed at the beginning, to see to what extent they were represented in the real life of these people. And to achieve greater granularity in the data, we developed custom sensors, as the one that you can see here. And this was useful for like these women that I was working on to walk throughout the street, throughout the routes that they usually followed, and mark the places where they were feeling some kind of unsettled or feelings of insecurity. For example, in this area, in this image that you see here on the bottom left, you see like this woman called Maria. And this is the route that she takes every day, or almost every day in the morning, to buy groceries from and going back home. And like as a researcher in the area and after working with this community, like I understand the reasons why she was pressing the button in the mobile sensor, right? As we see here in the map. And we see like a bunch of circumstances happening together. There's the car passing, like Maria is walking in this area where the walls are opaque. There is not a really opportunity for her to ask for help if that's what needed. So all of this makes her feel unsafe in this area. And not only that, but the fact that she knew that some kidnappings had occurred in this area in similar situations, right? So I did this with different women and different routes, different times of the day, and we learned a lot from this process. The question now is, once we have all this data that we collected from different sources, qualitative data, quantitative data, how do we incorporate all of these types into a model so we can simulate and we can understand what is happening and mainly how we can improve it? This brings us to step 3, a model and simulation. And as I mentioned, from the different examples of the data collected, we were able to simulate and predict how the safety perception was over the full community. These 6 images that you see here are simulating like people moving through throughout the map. These are like images of the map of the community. Each window represents one metric on the map. Green means safe and red means unsafe. And for instance, the window at the bottom right is showing the perception of people in this community based on whether they knew there were or they had been either kidnappings, crimes, or similar issues happening in that area. And at the end, the point of doing all this work is to prioritize where interventions in this community should be made. Like these outcomes are insightful for us as researchers, but the visualization still remains in the field of urban planners and computer scientists that understand this kind of language. So it is particularly important in informal settlements when sometimes the action that they take is led by the community to understand and to visualize different options that they can take action afterwards. So, since this is very hard to a community member to understand, we are trying to bring these tools closer to people from a community. For them, as I mentioned, to envision a place, to envision their city in a very natural way. And what we are working on now is like doing it through conversations, which brings us to this next slide, the last one of the process. We haven't worked on this specifically in Mexico so far, but we have been doing some testing here in the group. And this is one of the first iterations on a tool that could be used for this. This is Immersive Room, which we are all going to experiment within a minute in the class exercise afterwards. But the thing is, when you step into here, you can explore different visions for a specific location and interact with a model in a very intuitive way, which is through voice, through having conversations and have results in real time or almost in real time that are like somehow easily understood by all of us. This is a process breakdown. We are using 3D models sourced from the ImmerScope platform that Ariel mentioned before, and then we are applying a diffusion algorithm that is directed through the depth map of the image, and also the audio description that we are introducing throughout the microphone that you see in that image. And we have been testing this tool over a few months here now with different people passing by the group, and these are some of the results that we are having. I'm going to say that it was interesting to see, like people's visions over the same space and compare different possibilities. However, the results that we are having are really probabilistic and not specific at all. So in the level of development of the tool right now, the value lies in the conversations that are having in this space. And so somehow that helps us understand the values of the people that are interacting in this tool. So you'll be using this tool for the class exercise, as I mentioned, and I just have to say, let's play. We'll be presenting this a little bit later in detail. Luis is going to talk about a specific case where we are going to work here, which is going to be Costanera in Chile. So we'll explain after the break how we are going to work with this tool. That's all. Thank you so much.